Hello and welcome to this fast version of a Friday Night live stream. We'll be working on a half-page piece of printable holographic vinyl sticker paper. This type of sticker paper accepts water-based media, so I'll be using the white Brilliance ink here to block out some of that background holographic patterning. This type of holographic paper has an emulsion coating that accepts water-based media, so you don't want to substitute like an oil-based pigment ink to use on here. I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to be positioning my large tree trunks here. These are the art foamy versions of them, just because I'm working on a fairly large piece of this printable vinyl sticker paper. And when I get the kind of the registration of where those trees are going to go, I block out that background, because if I don't do that, if I just printed those tree trunks directly on top of the vinyl, all of that holographic color and light is going to show right through the open areas of the tree. It might look kind of interesting, but I'd rather block it out and be able to color those trees in, and I'll show you what I do with those when that time comes. Okay, I'm trying to figure out where these this tree trunk trio is going to go on this paper, so I had to kind of add a little bit of ink to it and give myself a registration impression, okay? Then when I get that down, what I do is I go in and I add in some narrow kind of strips of this white Brilliance ink in there. And you just kind of have to get it, you know, roughly, kind of around where those tree trunks are going to go. If you add a little bit too much or too little, it's going to be fine. Okay, now in the background of those trees, I want to have some kind of cloudy effects, textures, okay? So I'm adding this, doing this ripped paper towel technique to add in these, kind of the silhouette of these clouds, and you can see where that is on there. I'm not trying to get the clouds completely opaque, so it's kind of a thin layer of this white Brilliance pigment ink so that some of that color shows through. Now to stamp on here, what we're really doing is we're stamping on the white Brilliance ink, more so than stamping directly onto the printable vinyl sticker paper, because I'm stamping these tree trunks where I've already placed that white pigment ink, okay? And I'm just eyeballing it. You don't really need to use I don't know, a stamp positioner or something like that, but you certainly can if you want to. Maybe not with the art foamies, but with the rubber versions of these stamps. Okay, now that we have the trunks down, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a forest floor texturing here with the sedge filler, and again we're using the black Brilliance ink. And there we have the forest floor there. Okay, now I wanted a few extra trees in here, and I'm just using the trees from Autumn Brook. You can use any, but I felt like these trees were pretty good for that purpose, and I happen to have that stamp on my desk. Okay, now the fun part about this type of technique is that the Brilliance ink really applies and sticks to this type of printable holographic sticker paper. So you can't use colored pencils directly onto this printable vinyl. It's just, there's no texturing to it, so the white Brilliance ink that we've laid down as a base coat kind of creates a little bit of extra texture, excepting the pencils. Okay, I'm holding this down right here for a little bit of time so I can get a really dark impression of that deer. Adding in some overhanging tree limbs here. And I'm stamping these out in a green dye-based ink. And what we'll do later is we'll add in some black ones as well to create extra depth in that upper area. So the Brilliance inks are water-based, but so are dye-based inks. Okay, now I'm going in with the black Brilliance ink to get a little bit of a thicker impression and to create some of that depth. We have black leaves, and then the green ones are lighter, so they look like they're kind of farther behind that front row of leaves. Okay, then we go in again, and we're adding in some greens down there in that meadow area. You can't add too thick of a layer of colored pencils on here because the Brilliance ink is only so textured. So I'm kind of applying a light layer of these colored pencils. Now I'm going in with the black and adding in some extra shading with this black colored pencil. Sometimes the impressions on top of the white Brilliance ink don't stamp out very dark, so you can go and add in some extra darkness that might not have been applied with your colored pencil here. Not all colored pencils, probably can be used on this type of application, but the Prismacolors are, I don't know, they seem especially soft, so they work pretty good. Okay, now I've added in the shading with the colored pencils. Now I'm going in with a acrylic paint pens here and adding in some highlighting into my trees. Just in general, the lighting is going to be coming from above that deer in that open area. So the sides of the trees that are facing that light source, I'm adding these highlights in. You can't really see it too well in this video here, but they're tiny little dots of light. Okay, I'm kind of getting my bearings on where I'm going to have my vanishing point here from my source of light. And this is where this is what kind of the experiment was about on this one. I don't think I've added in these white light beams on the holographic printable vinyl before, so I wanted to see what that looked like. One of the things I'm doing strategically here is I'm adding a little bit more white where the light is coming from, okay? Then as I move away from it through the trees, I'm adding a little bit less of this pigment ink. You're kind of dry brushing it in there. In this case, I'm using a cotton ball, so it's kind of dry tapping it in. And that way, it looks like the beam is kind of dissipating as it moves away, and I think that looks a little bit more natural like that. Okay, now after I get one down, I'm kind of strategizing on the next beam. I like to vary the size of the beams, but if it's a wider beam, I typically make it weaker, so I do a thinner layer of the pigment ink on top of there. And this one will really dissipate like that. If you don't add enough, then just add a little bit more. And there we go, the second beam. And this is all drying on the surface very quickly. We're going with this really narrow beam, so I make it a little bit stronger, like that. And you can kind of weave it through the tree trunks too. You can have it going behind one tree trunk and in front of another. It makes it look a little bit more dimensional. And I don't plan out all my beams ahead of time. I have to kind of add one at a time and figure out, after I see what it looks like, I think of, okay, where do I want my next beam to be and what size? There's no right or wrong. You can just kind of vary it. And then it gets kind of angled towards the source of the beam, so I kind of soften it with some extra, I don't know, kind of illumination in that area. I don't give it a real thick application, but just a soft one. Okay, now those beams are kind of standing out texturally from the rest of the paper, so I like to integrate them a little bit more with some mist or fog maybe at the base of these trees. And I think from a visual standpoint, I think it makes it look a little bit more natural to have that white kind of soft texture in other areas of the scene when you have those beams coming in there like that. And you add it in just with a very dry cotton ball. You don't want to have a lot of ink on there. If you want it light and misty, you don't want it thick and blobby, okay? All right, a little bit more textures in the foreground in the form of those reeds down below in the left and right corners. And then I'm going back in with one more layer of these leaves at the top. Those reeds stamped out really dark in the lower area, so I thought, okay, let's balance it off a little bit more with some darker leaves at the top. And you can see all those different colors up there with the holographics. I'm getting a lot of kind of glare coming off of the my studio lights, so I flipped off a couple lights so that you can people in the live stream can see what I'm seeing in live and in person. I tried a incandescent bulb. You can see how vibrant those colors can be, but that was a little bit extreme here in the live stream. So I went back and flipped off that one incandescent light. And that's kind of what you would see normally. I turned off one of my studio lights on one side so that, you know, you can kind of see what I see in person there. This is a really fun surface to try and, you know, something new. You just have to use the water-based type of media on it, so the Brilliance inks really come in handy for that purpose. And if you're looking for something new and really dynamic and a pretty easy technique to do, very forgiving as well, because if you mess up, you just add a little bit of extra white pigment ink over it and start again. But give it a try. Hope you liked it. Thanks so much for watching.